Hi, this is Craig Lane with Health Alchemy. Welcome to week 2 of the cleanse. This is our third presentation, however, as our first presentation was a week before the cleanse actually started. If you're doing this online, of course, you're watching this whenever you feel like it, and actually highly recommended to skim through all of them to get a sense of what it is we're looking at. So this first slide here, now that we're heading into the second week, which is the week of evicting the tenants, this slide was used previously in our um, presentations for this, and just noteworthy of the yin and yang symbol on the bottom left of the PowerPoint is also noted in the shell by the woman's head and the little spiral of sand and rocks right next to her also. And as it turns out, humans unfold in a spiral also. We unfold from the womb out in this spiralic motion, and pretty much all of nature operates by a spiral, and that's been well documented, and there's even a certain mathematical formula that proves how life kind of unfolds in a spiral. And so we want to unwind, and that's what we're doing. Is the small intestine is transformation, is distilling. Page slide 2. So where we have fire, we have heat and light. So there can be no shadow by definition where there is light. And shadow behavior is behavior that drives us to do things that often we regret afterwards, and that causes the recycling of guilt and shame and sadness, and sometimes even fear and doubt. Those are sometimes things that keep us connected to this process via the past. And you'll note in a Chinese medical text, well-known statement, the small intestine separates the pure from the impure. The stomach takes the purest essence out of the food, and that's why when we eat something that's really in line with us, that's not too heavy, we'll often have a sense of lightness and energy. And that's why I like what Mark David, a nutritional psychologist, says is finish eating when you're full of energy. And I'd say finish eating when you're full of energy, not full of food. And the heart, which is the connected organ, the fire element in Chinese medicine, is the part that connects, it feels, it pumps the blood. And so think feeling, and the small intestine is the part that has to do with existence. It extracts what it can out of food, and then the large intestine kind of like is the turbid soup of the sewage treatment plant that still extracts more, but that's more microbially based. And in fact, that's the way it works. The large intestine is where there are by far more microbes in the body than anywhere else, and the small intestine is next, and then other places. And the slide I chose here is from the Mankind Project in the lower right. The only hope for mankind is the transformation of the individual. Krishnamurti was a great sage from India, and he ended up moving to Ojai, and a very awake individual. And the slide on the left is actually Noel under a waterfall up in Portland, and just that sense of joy and exuberance of being in line with nature and in joy in nature. She sent me this photo. I thought it was just a wonderful example of joy when you're in line and you're lined up with the greatness of nature. Slide 3. So this is the week 2 of eviction. And you want it to be gentle, because if we push too hard, then we're going to get pushed back upon. And there's a couple of sayings there. One of them's a paraphrase of something that I have learned, stated slightly different by other people, but we'll often give up. And we give up because we don't have the will to move forward through the unknown, out of fear usually, and what we're programmed. And this statement by the Tao Te Ching I've had in my mind for over 20 years, because it's been a guidepost for me. When things seem most off is often when I know that I need to keep pushing forward. And the bright path does seem dim, I'll tell you, for personal experience, and the straight road does seem to be crooked. A lot of spirituality is counterintuitive, and a lot of what we're doing in cleansing, we have to push through a lot of mind trouble. That picture there in the lower right hand side is actually one round of things I wanted to prove to people what comes out of me. And that's personal. That was from about a year ago. Some mucoid plaque, worms, slime. That's one of the more of the black variety. And I've had green and yellow. I've had zebra stripes stuff come out. I've had green encapsulated gelatin-looking things, um, things that look like mucus strands. And that side on the left is what happens in a mold or biofilm cycle, um, where implantation on the left, growth, and then the spores open and then get sent out into circulation via in the body or in the air. And so it's an insidious process, and we're not going to win the battle because we are mostly microbes. So we need to be gentle. And the next slide speaks to this and how our attitude is. Slide 4. I used to have a violent thinking about this, and you look at the war on health, the war on drugs, the war on this, the war on this we have in the country, and it's not going to win anything. We don't win through violence, and all the ancient texts of the Orient in India speak to this, that actually the one who is soft and gentle like a reed and blows and is flexible in the wind overcomes. The hard, stiff tree falls in the stiff wind, and the hard, stiff person also. And so when we send violent thoughts towards the critters that live in our gut, then they're going to fight back because they sense annihilation and they know that you're in control ultimately. So they are listening to you. And the two pictures on the right, the brain is connected to the gut via the vagus nerve. There are two different nervous systems. There's the conscious nervous system in the brain, and there's the unconscious or the enteric nervous system in the gut. And the big brain above does make most of the decisions, but the lower brain below is driven by microbes mostly. And they crave, and they get tapped in, make us think we crave things, but it's what they actually want. And so I remember at times when I finally started to drop the violent thoughts about annihilating them and killing them down below, that my health began to improve and things started coming out of me, actually, like you saw on the previous slide, slide 3. So everything has to eat and everything has to shit. So remember at one point I had particularly violent attitudes towards the candida in me. I remember saying to myself, I'm not giving in to these sugar cravings today. Fuck them. And then next thing you know, within 5 minutes, I was incredibly fatigued and fell asleep. And I don't know how many times this happened. There were times when I would overly indulge, and then their shit would be alcohol, and I'd be alcohol poisoning, basically, because sugar and yeast equals alcohol, and that's not spoken of a lot. I allude to this a lot in my lectures to wake people up that if they don't crave alcohol but they crave sugar, then they are getting drunk because the yeast in their body, whatever their body's not digesting, the yeast is, and yeast secrete carbon dioxide and alcohol. So carbon dioxide becomes acid, and alcohol becomes a poison to the liver and to your nervous system. So then you don't eat what they want, and then they can fight back for a while, and they will secrete neurotoxins and poisons and things that make you want what they want. It's quite insidious, but like I said, you're the one making the decisions. So your attitude's important. Like with the child, firm boundary and gentle is the way to think about these things. Slide 5. So the cutting edge of medicine on the link there, I've been referring to this. It's from week 1 and the previous week. This is technically week 3. I've been going through this because there's so much juice in this series of slides from various MDs at a lecture and PhDs, and a couple of noteworthy ones. There's number 6. Every biofilm has a worm DNA in it. I think that's fascinating. 7. The more you deworm, the longer you live. And I definitely note that I'm healthier now that I'm dewormed a bit more. Keep in mind that the jaw and the sinuses, we're going to talk about that on the next page, because that has a lot to do with parasite treatment. Keep in mind that anything can be a parasite. Humans can be a parasite when they don't act in accordance with the whole. Candida or fungus is a normal thing in our body, but it becomes parasitic when it overgrows. Bacteria are a normal part of our body, and they can get parasitic when they're overgrown. Worms, debatably, are naturally part of our body, but when they get overgrown, then they cause problems. And another one worthy of notice, number 2 and number 3. Parasite patients often express the psyche of the parasites. And number 3, patients will reject all treatments that affect the tissue that requires treating. Patients will not guide themselves to health when microbes have taken over. And I will note that I've had a number of clients that came to me for help with their parasites, and they could not get beyond it because they weren't willing to go through the pain of the parasite poison, the parasites poisoning them while they were we won't say killing, while they were pruning. I like the prune the tree analogy. We need to prune the tree here, so we're not killing you guys. We're just pruning you back a bit. And countless times did I fail. Countless times did many others fail. And I won't even say it's a failure. I'll just say that when you come to me for a goal and you don't meet the goal, then in that context, it's a failure. But in the bigger scheme of things, they couldn't get beyond the detox pain. And that happens to a lot of people. They know they need a detox, but they can't get beyond what number 5 says. Parasites induce changes in our system to make us a comfortable host. When things get uncomfortable for them by not feeding them what they want and doing what we're doing here in this cleanse, then they make us a bit uncomfortable until we clear out the apartment, so to speak. So we're doing the eviction process now. Slide 6. So this is important stuff. This is not just about the gut. We often have jaw infections, mercury in our teeth, things sitting in the sinuses. There's actually a mucus layer that has biofilm in it also in the sinuses behind the ear, the sinuses here. There's different pockets of sinuses up here in the head. So oil pulling can be very helpful. I can give you a handout for that because that clears out a lot of this, the action of pulling oil in our mouth like that pulls things out and then into the oil, and then we spit it out and rinse our mouth out. Herbal teas in the ear, getting things in the ear and flushing it out. Hydrogen peroxide with a bit of soap, olive oil with essential oils, or just plain olive oil in the ears, or black seed oil, which isn't mentioned here. Nigella sativa is a black seed oil. It's a great thing for the ear. Packs of greens on the chest you can do. Packs of mustard and onions. Oils like black seed oil or olive oil infused with essential oils. There's a few listed there. And packs of greens on the chest, because the chest and the sinuses have a relationship, obviously. And there's some great things to try this week. And for those of you that are really wanting to go for it, just outside of diet, when you have some time, or if you're willing to experiment, I think doing some ear therapy, some nose washing, or even neti pot with some herbal teas that are disinfectant, like echinacea. There's some herbs that are listed on the next coming pages that one could try. Traditional Medicinals makes a number of cold care echinacea teas. I think those are fantastic. And let's go to the next slide. Number 7. So then we get them from this end. We get stuff from here. We get stuff in the jaw from oil pulling. We get stuff up via enema, up the anal sphincter. And we can get creative. You can do a simple salt enema. I love the three rounds of enema. The first one to clear out the colon a bit, quart of water with salt, or you could do various types of echinacea teas or cold care teas. There's hundreds of herbs to choose from. The next one is the coffee enema, which is not listed on this slide, but coffee could be another item to add into this. This actually is my favorite strategy. So for those of you doing this, consider doing a coffee enema next, which is getting, since all the circulation from the gut ends up in the liver, everything that's absorbed in the gut, large intestine, small intestine, ends up in the liver. We're clearing that out with the coffee enema and helping the liver detox, speeding up liver detox by 700%. 700%. And then we follow up with something soothing to the colon in the last enema. This is all back to back to back. Usually takes about an hour. We do a flaxseed tea combined with wheatgrass or comfrey leaf juice. What I did yesterday was I took comfrey from my garden, picked about 14 or 15 leaves, put them in my Vitamix with a little less than a quart of water, pulverized it, then ran it through a strainer, and I drank part of that with some kombucha and beet kvass, and then I flushed the other part up with some probiotic, the Garden of Life raw for men. Put in about 75 billion microorganisms and let that sit for about an hour while I was doing the earlier enemas. Liquid chlorophyll could work here, and wheatgrass. You can buy wheatgrass, and even if you don't have a wheatgrass, you can buy the wheatgrass, take it all out of the bag, or cut it, and then put it in a blender, blend it, and then strain it, and you've got this lovely green juice that's really going to help your colon a lot. So the overall strategy of the cleanse, especially this week, is we've cleared the messy house out now. Now we're ready to uproot the plants, the bad tenants. We want to bind them to stuff and we want to flush them out, and that's where the enemas can be incredibly effective. Slide 8. There's more of the cutting edge here. As you can see, this is stuff that most people aren't hearing about, especially in mainstream, but these are physicians from that same conference. And I'm going to continue slide 8 on part 2. So get ready for part 2 in just a minute.